So this is about the preservation of Alvin Weinberg's papers, his historical papers. And I was talking to Ronnie Bogart about the papers because we're a supporter of the digitization and preservation of those records. And in the conversation, Ronnie said, well, we had this finding aid that the archivist that was hired to help did. And I said, oh, let me see it. And so she gave me the finding aid, and I started looking at it. And Alvin Weinberg was a mentor of mine. He didn't know he was a mentor, but he was somebody that really influenced my career and my life. And it started when I was in graduate school back in 1970. And his report from the President's Council of Scientific Advisors, Kennedy, asked him to do a report on science, government, and information and the challenges thereof. And that report was very seminal in my thinking about scientific information, from which I'd made my career. So Ronnie gave me this finding aid, and I started looking through things, and I didn't get through box 8W001 when I saw AAAS. Now these boxes and these finding aids tell you about the way Alvin thinks. And the first thing was the AAAS. And I remembered, actually, when I worked at the lab in the early 70s, that I joined AAAS because of Alvin. He was an avid reader of Science Magazine, and the way you got Science Magazine was you paid your dues and you joined AAAS. And so that was very influential in my career. And today I'm on the council of AAAS, and I've been very involved in the section on information, computing, and communications. So then I continued to read down, and I couldn't even get past the first box because I see Alvin Weinberg, Curriculum Vitae, AAAS Bulletin, and then a quote, "Dare we take the social sciences seriously?" which was a paper by Kenneth E. Boulding. Dare we take the social science seriously? And this was in I would say somewhere about 67, because that was the other things in that file. And I remember when I worked in the program planning and analysis group, Alvin Weinberg asked that question. They had at that time the first social scientist at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and that was Claire Nader. And the Department of Energy, I guess it was AEC back at that time, was not committed to have social science at the national laboratories. So just reading through these records and seeing dare we take social science seriously really shows you a lot of insight into what Alvin cared about and thought about. Well, haven't even gotten past the first box, and I said, you know, Ronnie, he was so influential and the way he thought was so foundational to this community that it would be great to have a couple of people talk about these kinds of influences. And so here I am to tell you that preserving the memory and the records of Alvin is just a terrific, terrific project. And I hope you'll all participate.